Hi friends, welcome to the analysis of Civil Services Main Examination GS Paper 1. Friends, first of all, we would like to analyze that how to write an impressive answer. When we talk about the written examination of the main examination, it is most important how to write an impressive answer, or which answer would you call an impressive, accurate, or relevant answer? So, according to the latest pattern, as we can see, the previous year there were 25 questions of 200 and 100 words respectively, for which the allotted marks were 20 and 10. There was no choice of the questions, all questions were compulsory, and thus we can see that the total word limit was almost 5,000 in each paper of general studies. When we talk about the strategy or the answer writing skills, or simply about the answer writing, we can divide it into two parts. One is about the content, and the second is about the answer writing skill. Any candidate can develop the content by continuous reading and writing. But as far as the answer writing skill is considered, it is not an overnight task, because answer writing skill needs incessant practice and right approach. Content may vary based on the facts and figures. But when we talk about the answer writing skill, then it is an art which gradually develops by continuous practice. So, when we talk about the answer writing skill, first of all, it can be said that any question can be divided into two or three parts in general. If the question is about 200 words, it can be divided into three parts: introduction, body, and conclusion. That is a coherent way of the presentation. But if the question is about only 100 words, or you have to write an answer in 100 words only, then you can skip introduction, directly write body. And if we talk about the questions which are asked in 200 words, if we give an introduction, it should not be more than 1 or 2 lines, or not more than 20 or 30 words. Then it comes the body. What is body? Body is actually the ideas which you have to put in the question. You can give the body of the question or the main core of the question in paragraph, that is preferred in general in the subjects of humanities. But if the question is based on some scientific points or some economic points, suppose if you have to enumerate different points of a policy, then you can use bullet points also, but that bullet points must be also in number form, like 1 2 3 4 etc. Then it comes the conclusion. In long answer type questions, try to draw a connection between the introduction and conclusion. So if there is no relation between the introduction and the conclusion, you can say that your conclusion subsidize your introduction, or the conclusion is the winding up the question or the topic. So as we know that the introduction is the opening of the question, the conclusion is winding up the question. So basically we can see that there are three major parts of the long answer type questions: introduction, body, and conclusion. this is the right approach. Then what you should do before starting an answer? Draw a synopsis. Draw a synopsis. Synopsis is a rough draw of your presentation, that what you are going to write in the examination. Before preparing a synopsis or without preparing a synopsis, you cannot include all significant points. So try to draw a synopsis before writing an answer. Then what to do and what not to do? First of all, follow word limits. If you do not follow word limit, it means you are not disciplined while writing your answer. Follow word limit. Underline important portion, points, lines or phrases. But keep in mind that the underlined part must not be more than 10% of total words. You do not need any different color to underline the questions or the points. Just underline it with the ink in your writing your answer. Your writing must be legible. Then it comes about diagram. So diagram is only given where they are necessary. Avoid unnecessary diagram, flowcharts, figures, etc. Diagram must come in between introduction and body, or body and conclusion. There should not be any diagram before introduction or after conclusion, because it would be of no use. One more thing, your diagram should be borderlined. It must be in a box. It must have a title, and the different parts of the diagram must be clearly mentioned or marked. So these are some important points to be kept in mind while writing an answer. After this, we'll see the sectional or the topic wise breakup and the analysis of the topic wise breakup of this question paper. Then we will discuss each and every question in detail. Okay friends, let us see the overall analysis of questions, their kind and type. So as far as you know, General Studies paper 1, the prescribed syllabus is about Indian heritage and culture, Indian history, world history, Indian geography, world geography, social issues, and since last year there were questions of only two types. One, 200 words, for which the marks were allotted 10 marks, and the another were questions of 100 words only, for which the allotted marks were 5 marks. So thus we can see here that in this mock 1 for GS paper 1, there are two questions based on Indian heritage and culture. Both questions are of 100 words, and the maximum assigned marks to them are 5 marks each. So 2 questions from Indian heritage and culture of 10 marks total, 9 questions from Indian history for which the marks are 90, 4 questions from world history eventually fetching 40 marks, Indian geography 2 questions 45 marks, and 2 questions of 200 words and 5 questions of 100 words. Thus total marks for Indian geography 45. World geography 1 question of 100 mark, world geography 1 question of 200 words, 10 marks, and 3 questions of 100 words, 5 marks each. Thus, world geography is of 25 marks in total, and social issues 4 questions of 10 marks. Thus, total marks for social issues are 40. Thus, we can see that total number of questions are, the total marks allotted to questions are 250, in where 20 questions are of 200 words and 10 questions are of 100 words. Friends, now come to the first question. The first question is from ancient India, and the question is: ancient India had a significant legacy in metallurgy. First of all, we can divide the questions in two parts: the questions which are primarily based on information, and the second which are based on analysis. Now, the questions which are primarily based on information, there the main part of body would be information, then 1-2 line conclusion. But the questions which are based on analysis, the main focus or main emphasis is on the analysis part, which is also a part of conclusion. It means you can analyze the body and then conclude it. Suppose if we think about this question, the ancient India had a significant legacy in metallurgy. Discuss. The question uses a word discuss. Though this is an information based question, but you can wind up this question by a conclusion as well. First of all, while drawing a synopsis of the questions for answer, friends, one more thing, since you have model answer, so I would not discuss the exact or the total points of model answer here, because that would be of no use. You have model answer with yourself. I'll discuss some other points or summarize the model answer in some points. Okay, suppose if we draw the synopsis for this question, then we can divide the metallurgy era in ancient India, starting from Harappan period, then Vedic, then post-Vedic and Mauryan, then Gupta, and then post-Gupta era, in which some metallurgical significant achievement during Chola and other kingdom. Okay, so when we talk about Harappan period, you all know people of Harappan civilization were aware of metallurgy or the different type of ores and metals. Later it came to be known as Bronze Age, Copper Age also. Now, the metallurgy advancement was in the field of tools, utensils and weapons, means arms. You all know the bronze statue of a female dancer is an important example of metallurgy or the techniques and technology of the metal in ancient India. Apart from it, use of different metals is mentioned in different Vedic literature too. For example, Atharvaved and the Statpath Brahman refer to Krishna Aryas or black metal. Probably it was iron. Though the Indus Valley people did not know about the iron, but after that the use of iron came to the knowledge of the ancient people. And in the post-Vedic era, followed by Mauryan, then Gupta. The metallurgy technique reached its peak in ancient India. Eventually, different number of coins issued by different rulers, and an excellent example of Indian metal art is the iron pillar of Delhi, that is of Gupta period, that depicts the technological advancement in the field of metallurgy in ancient India. And after that you can see the different statue of Nataraja found in Chola period is also an example of metallurgy technology in India. So you can see, you can draw a broad line that the metallurgy technique and technology evolved in ancient India during different phases and different stages. First of all, it was based on alloy, then pure metal, then the advanced metal. So here we can conclude the question with the following conclusion, that the technology or the technique or the development in the field of metallurgy in India was propagate. It got quite important and significant establishment, and it flourished as well. Now come to the question number 2, a question of modern India, though Indian history. The question reads as, though the moderate nationalists became consequently irrelevant, their contribution in the growth of nationalism in India is unambiguous. Comment. Now this question is more analytical in nature, hence the main part of the body would be analysis. The question is less factual or less information based, rather more analytical. First of all, we can draw an outline of this question, which comprises 3 points: the emergence of nationalist, the culmination of nationalist movement, and then their declination. After 1857, you can see the national movement shifted from a region based to the nation level, and there was a national awakening, whether in the form of social reform, cultural reform, or educational reform. And all such activities got oriented towards the foundation of Indian National Congress in 1885 by some nationalist leaders, though they were primarily liberal moderates. And in the first decade of 20th century, when the national movement shifted from liberal modernism to extremism, the demand of the Swaraj or the Pur Swaraj, etc. Here at this point, the effect of early moderate nationalist leaders declined significantly. But their effect became irrelevant, but their importance remained as it was. So why nationalists became irrelevant? Because they cannot produce a mass leader. First of all, they could not connect with Indian people, and they could not propagate their movement into the roots of the Indian rural or the rural Indian system. These were some major important failures. Still, we cannot deny the fact that their movement was, the contribution given by them was unambiguous and irrelevant. No, their contribution was quite relevant and without any doubt, undoubtedly, because they emphasize on the liberal Western ideas. They patronized the Western education for social reforms and for Indian social development. So we can see that though in the past, in past or the later years, they became irrelevant, but their importance was significant as well. This is a short explanation of question number 2. And now the question number 3. Congress ministries constituted in 1937 depicted a glimpse of Swaraj. Elaborate. This question is also 50% based on information and 50% on analysis. You all know that the demand of Purna Swaraj was raised in 1929 at Lahore session of Indian National Congress, and in 1937 when the elections were held for Indian legislative assemblies, Congress party came to the power in different states, and that 28-29 months period of Congress in power depicted a shift from to be ruled to ruler, but the ruler was inclined towards a welfare state or with a view of nationalist and Swarajist. For example, different ministers of the power or the party which was in power, the members of the power showed some significant steps which sent a message to Indian people that seriously they were thinking about the welfare of Indian people. For example, the member of ministers reduced their salaries, they introduced more civil rights and advocate for the social development. They introduced more amicable policy for and towards the laborers to defy the hartals or the deadlocks between the factory owners and the laborers, etc. Such types of steps were taken by the ministers which depicted a slight sign or a signal of Swaraj in India. Finally, we can conclude, though the Congress ministries or the Congress party in power did not survive for a long time, but it showed a way, it showed the future of independent India in the form of a democratic republic and a welfare state. Thus, we can conclude question number 3. As far as question number 4, it is totally based on the information, based on Indian personality of ancient India, Sister Nivedita. So please go through some important social, cultural, educational and nationalist personalities of modern India. For example, the question is about discuss the role of Sister Nivedita in the social reform movements and national movements in India. So this question is totally based on the information, introduction, 1 or 2 line introduction of Sister Nivedita. Sister Nivedita or the Margaret Elizabeth Nobel was a Scottish Irish social worker. She met Vivekananda in 1895 and got influenced. She came to India in 1898 and she got through the process of the you can say the process of the knowledge. Vivekananda taught her the lessons of Brahmacharya and then and renamed her or named her Sister Nivedita, means dedicated to God. The question is asking about the social reform movements and the role of Sister Nivedita in social reform movements. So, in ancient India, mainly the work was on the education. She opened a girls' school in Bagh Bazar in Kolkata. She participated in plague epidemic relief activities. She promoted the Indian culture and Indian nationalism movements also. She joined Ramakrishna Mission and using the platform of the spiritual awakening, she participated in the Indian social awakening. In 1913, she died at Darjeeling. So, here is a brief information about Sister Nivedita, and rest of all information are given in the model answer. Friends, such type of question does not demand any specific conclusion because they are information based question, so you cannot draw a conclusion because it is where you draw conclusion. You draw conclusion where you have to analyze or where you have to give a solution. So such type of questions remain confined to the body of the question, which starts from the introduction. So this was all about question number 4. When we talk about the question number 5, Indian folk paintings represent prosperous diversity of culture. Comment. This question has 2 parts, 100 words, 5 marks each. The question is of about Indian art and tradition or art and culture. The first part, part A, talks about the Indian folk paintings. So, Indian folk paintings during different era flourished and it showed or depicted the paintings of all walks of life. Since it was not a court art, it was not patronized by some emperor, some dynasty, hence it diversely flourished in different ways and thus it depicts the all walks of life. Whether it is Madhubani painting of Bihar, the Far painting of Rajasthan, different tribal paintings, Patachitra paintings of Odisha, Kalighat paintings of Bengal, Gond and other tribal paintings. They were influenced by nature. They depicted different day-to-day activities, different rituals. So we can see that the Indian folk paintings are a kaleidoscopic view of the total Indian culture and tradition. This question is also based on information and not an analysis but an elaborate discussion. But the question is limited to 100 words, so such kind of information would be sufficient. Then it comes to the question number 5, part B. Taj Mahal reflects all the architectural features that were developed during the Mughal period. This question is slightly analytical because you have to compare the architecture of Taj Mahal to the different architectural you can say different architectural techniques and art of Mughal, starting from the Babur and Akbar and Babur, Humayun and Akbar. So this question is a comparison between architecture of Taj Mahal and architecture of pre-Taj Mahal during Mughal period. So first of all, Taj Mahal was substantially inspired by Humayun's tomb or the architecture of Humayun's tomb. It followed a set pattern of garden, terrace area, then charbagh means gardens, and architecture of an Iwan. Iwan means that an arc shaped dome. An arc shaped doorway. It was also followed in the architecture of Taj Mahal. We can see that no doubt that Taj Mahal represents the finest and the most sophisticated example of Mughal architecture, and it has all set patterns of architectural developments of the Mughal period. And you all know that under the reign of Shah Jahan, the symbolic content of Mughal architecture reached its peak, and Taj Mahal is the crown of all Mughal architecture. You can conclude your answer by this point. Okay friends, now to come question number 6. Again an analytical question from Indian history. Consolidation of India was a major cause of concern just after independence. Comment. So here, what would be the synopsis of the question? Synopsis of the question would be that the problems of India just after independence, the greatest problem was the partition, and post partition the rehabilitation of refugee. Then it was the consensus with princely states and consolidation with them. Consolidation of India was a major cause. It means here consolidation involves all the processes to defy the proxy war of Pakistan in 1947, to get rid or to overcome the problem of partition and the rehabilitation of the refugees. Then the conciliation talks with princely states and other issues. So this would be synopsis. And your points come in this particular order. You cannot start the answer from the talk with or the annexation of the Junagadh and Nizam and Hyderabad, then the partition, then the problem of refugee. Though the problems were simultaneous, but they were in a chronological order. Partition of India followed by rehabilitation of refugees, then the problems with princely states, annexation of Junagadh, Kashmir and Hyderabad. These all were basically consolidation problem of India just after independence. Moreover, Pakistan adopted a stance of enmity with India. Consequently, it threw a proxy war, and apart from it, the internal political stranded ideology like the leftist or the left faction of the Indian political system didn't appreciate the freedom. They called it the false freedom. So satisfy or the pacify them was also a part of problem of consolidation in India. This would be the synopsis and the structure of the answer. Now come to the second question. Though the economic planning in India did not meet its all objectives, its importance cannot be ignored. discuss. So, this problem, what this question signifies? This question signifies a problem in core and solution in its periphery. Though economic problem could not achieve the all objectives, but its role or its importance cannot be discarded. Very true. India started 5-year plans in 1952. माफ कीजिएगा, sorry. India started 5-year plans in 1951. 5-year plans were necessary because India was a stagnant agricultural based economy which needed a fast stimulus to be an industrialized nation. For that, it needed a 5-year plan. It was started in 1951. Main focus was on agriculture, then again agriculture, then industrialization. This was the process. Any underdeveloped country cannot overnight adopt the policy of industrialization without restructuring or without developing its infrastructure. So India adopted a comprehensive economic planning based on development of agriculture. Though it could not achieve all objectives, the growth rates were quite low in compare to the targeted growth rate. But still, we cannot deny the fact that it has its significant importance. The achievement of economic planning is that total income, national income or the per capita income has increased. Self-sufficient in food production, self-sufficient in agricultural production, an industrialized and a developing nation. So it's true that we could not achieve all objectives of economic planning, but we cannot take it granted that we can discard it also. Still, there are some problems like large scale poverty, large scale unemployment, slow growth rate of economy are problems, but we will overcome. That would be the answer, that would be the approach, an optimistic approach. Accepting and considering the problems, we have to put a concern with the problems we are facing, still we have a hope. That would be the structure and the orientation of the question. For question number 7, now come to question number 8. Requirements of economic development played an inevitable role in the determination of Indian policy of external affairs after independence. Comment. So, after independence, India's foreign policy adopted the diversification of economic policy. In any country's foreign relation or the international relation or the bilateral relation, strategic relation is also a part of economic relation. Political relation is also a part of economic relation. So all or all or intermingled. Economic relations, political relations, strategic relations, all are intermingled to each other. Suppose we talk about the regional blocks like ASEAN, European Union, SAARC nations, Shanghai 5, African Union, etc. To strengthen our foreign policy, India has signed different types of agreement like free trade agreement FTA, SAFTA with South Asian nations. And when we draw an outline of this question in ancient or in past, we find that after independence, India signed or India followed the policy of Panchashil with China, non-aligned movement to be a peaceful country, signing United Nations, etc. But still, it is still kept on improving its strategic relations with the then powerful countries like USSR, signing deals, opening dialogues with different nations based on the economic participation, eventually moving forward towards improving foreign relations. So it can be said, or it can be concluded, that at present level, during the period of globalization, it is an inevitable policy for any nation to extend and to expand its economic relations with other nations, to strengthen, to consolidate, to reinforce its foreign policy. What it happens in today's world, when the foreign policy or the policy of a nation threatens another one, first of all, there are economic sanctions. Like you can see in the case of Russia and Ukraine, countries of European Union and USA are putting further economic sanctions on Russia. Thus, their economic or foreign policy is weakening. So, it's inevitable for any country to develop an economic relation with different country to inculcate its foreign policy. This would be the approach and orientation of this question. Now come to the question number 9. Analyze the circumstances that made the Green Revolution necessary in India. Critically examine its success. Now, this question is based on 2 points. Analyze and critically analyze. First of all, we have to analyze the circumstances which forced India to adopt a policy of Green Revolution, and then its critical analysis, its achievements, its failures. About the circumstances, you all know: post freedom circumstances, an insufficient agricultural product, high level of import of cereals from foreign nations, forced India to start Green Revolution. Indian agriculture was stagnant, without proper technology and finance stimulus. So India was forced to adopt a policy of Green Revolution to increase its food production, to feed a huge population, and to be self-sufficient in food production, then to be an exporting country of cereals and other. So see the question number 8 again. Sorry, it's question number 9. And here the relevancy of Green Revolution and its success and failures. When we talk about the success and failures of the Green Revolution, we can see that some selected states only benefited Green Revolution, while rest of India has been cut off this Green Revolution. States like Punjab, Haryana, etc. only, and Western Uttar Pradesh got benefited from the policy of Green Revolution. So these are some critical issues regarding Green Revolution. Now to come to question number 10. China wounded the spirit of the Panchsheel Agreement in 1962 and it could not be recovered yet. Discuss. Against this question is based on the Indian history, but more precisely based on the bilateral relations. As we all know that India has been a peace-loving country. It followed the policy of Panchsheel, non-aligned movement, etc. It signed an agreement known as Panchsheel Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru signed this agreement in 1954 based on the five principles, but in 1962 China attacked India at the northeast frontier. China broke its commitment by attacking India in 1962. Apart from it, China has been favoring Pakistan in 1971 and 1961 wars. This movement of China can be called as the treacherous movement. It has weakened or threatened the belief or the trust, in fact the mutual trust between two nations. Still, India could not solve the boundary issue with China. There are some significant and optimistic movements also. China has joined BRICS nations. High delegations are visiting each other, but still, the wound of the 1962 war still oozes. It acts. Here the conclusion would be based on that both India and China have to forget the past. They have to write new stories of mutual cooperation and mutual trust and relations. Both are developing countries with large area and huge population. In fact, these two are the most populated country of the world, and they are becoming powerful nations as well. Strong trade relations. So there must be initiate a confidence building measurement, and the deterrence of each country from each other for each other have to discouraged. This would be the line of the question. Question number 10. So friends, now come to question number 11. Industrial revolution led rapid economic growth of Western Europe, though it also caused the colonization of Asia and Africa. Analyze. No doubt, pre-revolution period was almost as developed in Europe as rest of the world, excluding some dark countries or dark nations. It was the industrial revolution which caused the economic expansion, the economic revolution, and then the colonization. The most important point of economic revolution, which was followed by industrial revolution, was that the surplus production needed surplus market. Industrial revolution needed cheap labor and cheap raw material, which was not available in Europe. So, not only substantially but significantly, the industrial revolution spread the economic expansion which culminated in the form of colonization in Asia and Africa. So, the analysis of this question revolves towards the positive points that yes, it's true that the industrial revolution led rapid economic growth in Western Europe, which was started in Britain but very soon spread in the Western European countries like Spain, the Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, France, etc., which led an incessant economic expansion in the form of colonization. The aim of the colonization was to capture the raw materials, to exploit the cheap labor, and to produce a new market, and which significantly later introduced in a war between these countries. So these are the broad line of this question. Question number 11. Question number 12. As the friend allies propagated, Germany alone was not liable for the First World War, but other major powers of Europe were equally liable for the war. Comment. Generally, it is believed that only Germany was responsible for the expansion and the extension of the World War One. But no, the advancement and the propagation of the Allied forces against Germany was equally responsible. You can see that after the end of the First World War, the victorious Friend Allies laid down the entire liability of the war on German alliance, especially on Germany, and they propagated that it was Germany alliance that initiated the war, whereas they joined the war for their defense against German aggression. But after consideration of the circumstances prevalent in Europe at that time, it can be concluded easily that all concurrent major European powers were liable for the war. Some strong examples to support the argument are: to occupy more and more colonies was a major cause of conflict, which we discussed in the previous question. A cutthroat or a neck to neck competition among the developed nations culminated in the form of the war. Moreover, there were some secret treaties before the war which also executed the war. The theory of expansion, the theory of aggression by Germany is not adopted at broad level. Question number 11. For question number 12, we can see disarmament conferences held between two world wars did not succeed to avoid World War II. Discuss. One can say that some treaties and some agreements paved the way for the World War II. After World War I concluded, there was disarmament conferences which were held to keep world at peace so that the treaties would survive. But it weakened and it did not bring its fruit. For example, Washington Conference, which was held in 1922, it was to confine the naval powers to only major nations like USA, Britain, etc. But the anomaly or the ambiguity of this conference was that the number of quantity of warships was not defined. Not only the fighting capacity or the potential, the lethal potential of the warships were also not defined. So anyone could put any number of naval ships with it. Generally, it was a single conference that partially succeeded. Again, we talk it. The conference was summoned in London in 1930 to discuss naval disarmament and to review the treaties of the Washington Conference of 1921 to 22. The most important, the League of Nations Disarmament Conference, which was held in 1932, which began at Geneva, and its some conditions were not accepted by Germany. So we can see in a nutshell that all such disarmament conferences were nothing to produce any kind of result because there was no control or no monitoring of such conference. So we can see in a nutshell that all such disarmament conferences were nothing to produce any kind of result because there was no control or no monitoring of such conference. So in a single line it can be said that the failure of the disarmament or the unilinear or the unanimity of these disarmament conferences produced the result or the cause for World War II. Question 14. Consequences of the Russian Revolution were not confined only to Russia, but they affected the rest of the world as an option of the capitalist system. Discuss how Russian Revolution affected the whole of the world. Draw an outline, finding the view from the French Revolution, which paved the way of liberty, fraternity, and unity among nations after French Revolution, or the urge for freedom after US Revolution. So it can be said that any revolution happening in any country does not affect only to that country, but affect it affects to all of the world. Likewise, Russian Revolution took place in 1917 under the leadership of Lenin, and it was an establishment of the communist government as an option of the capitalist regime. Constitution of a socialist or communist government after the revolution that directly represented peasants, workers, and soldiers inspired the socialist and communist movements in the rest of the world. It expanded from Russia to China and rest of the Southeast Asian nations. It expanded towards the Western Latin American nations also. The result of this system was that the Soviet government opposed the new colonial system, and it supported the different freedom movements in different colonies of the world, which in turn again opposed by the developed countries of Western Europe who were ruling those colonies. So it can be said that the emergence of a new system of government post Russian Revolution inspired the establishment of such socialist or communist economy and political system in rest of the world. Question number 14 could be concluded on this ground on the basis of these points. For example, here the constitution of communist governments in China, Cuba, and Vietnam was inspired by Russian Revolution. You can see the after effects of the introduction of the communist government in these countries. Question 15 is based on social issues. The trafficking of women and children is still a major social problem in India. Analyze. Definitely. Very subjective, very open-ended question. You can write thousands of words on this topic like an essay. This question is like an article. 200 words are insufficient to express, but still just give introduction in one line, introduce the problem, the body of the problem, then conclude. Here conclusion means not the analysis. Here conclusion means a solution. What is the solution of this problem? The question demands solution in the form of conclusion. In that way you can connect your introduction to conclusion. In India, though human trafficking is banned by law, it's a crime. Still, it's in practice. In disguised form, it is in practice. The main problem for this practice is economic reasons, migration, and some social reasons also. The purpose of women and children are in the form of trafficking is different. In the case of women, it is the sexual exploitation. In case of children, it is in general the domestic work or domestic help. The problem is at two levels: the inter-boundary trafficking and intra-boundary trafficking. The Indian government has to work at both levels. It has to plug the leak outs or the leaks at the boundaries. Simultaneously, on another hand, it has to discourage the practice in Indian society or Indian territory, making the law more strong and deterrent. There are different types of schemes introduced by central government which which introduce different steps like rehabilitation is also rescue, rehabilitation, and different steps are there to inculcate this problem and to cater the result. Come to question number 16. Creation of sufficient employments at local level is the only measure to tackle with the problem of large scale migration of the people from rural areas to urban areas. Comment. Again, a social problem. The problem related with migration. What is the main purpose of migration? And what is the main cause of migration? And what if you finish the cause, if you finish the reason of migration, migration would be stopped. In large cities nowadays, in large cities, migration from rural India is a big problem. Sometimes it becomes a political issue also, like we can see in the case of Delhi. When any politician of Delhi asks about the migrant laborers from Uttar Pradesh and Bihar to return back to their homeland, it becomes a political issue. Anyways, the main problem behind migration or the main cause of migration is that the seasonal migration and lack of employment in rural areas. Very true and very practical example is that there runs a train from Saharsa to Amritsar. That is a local train. Local means not any express train, not local train. Actually, it is not an express or super fast train. It is a general train. There is no reservation. It runs every week, and there is a large scale migration from Saharsa, Bihar to Amritsar, Punjab for employment, for rural employment, for daily basis. They work, they have land. The workers have their own land, but they cannot go for agricultural practice due to different problems like flood in the monsoon and drought during rest of the year. So if government introduces such policy that they can get labor at their own place, whether they are going to engage themselves in the agricultural activities or any small scale industry or any kind of industry which can be established in rural areas like sugar industry, they will not migrate. In that way, MG Narega program has brought some fruits. MG Narega program has stopped the seasonal migration. But still, in this way, we need to work more. We need to walk miles. We have to introduce, we means government. We means government. Government has to introduce such policies which must be in sustaining nature. Like if the possibility of establishment of industry, the establish industry and generate employment at local level. Ministry of Rural Development and Panchayati Raj is doing lots of schemes in this way, but here the problem lies, and the core of this problem is that the unavailability of employment. 17. India has the largest portion of youth population in the world, and this population can be a greater resource of development and power. Discuss the measures to transform the youth population into a competent resource. This question is talking about the demographic dividend which India has. How it can be introduced, the great potential of the youth power into a productive mass or productive population. For this, India has targeted by 2020 that it would develop some schemes, it would launch some skill development schemes which would generate different types of skills among youth, so that they would become a productive mass and could be a part of the constructive activities and development activities in India. Here just we have to give an introduction of one or two lines. The skill development can be based on two or three approaches: educational qualification, educational skills, work skills, and different types of extracurricular skills like small industrial skills, textile skills, etc., so that there would be generation of employment for youth, and in this way many different problems like migration towards urban areas would be stopped. This would be the line of the question. Question 18. Participation of the common people against social evils at grassroots level is more effectual rather than legislation. Discuss the steps that should be taken against female feticide. It's very true that such type of evil events can be stopped only, if not only then majorly, on the basis of the social awareness, to send a message that it is a social evil, and to stop such ill and malpractices. Legislation is second part of the awareness. Legislation is a deterrence against the crimes, and it is more applicable for those people who are aware with the problem, still they are doing the any type of crime. Suppose if a person stops female feticide, or he or she thinks female feticide, that is the best solution. But if he knows or she knows that female feticide is crime, still he or she is doing it, then there is legislation. So the first stage to discourage this practice is the social awakening and awareness about this social evil. Government has stopped the sex determination at different places, different diagnostic centers, but still people are doing it by paying bribery, etc. These events must be stopped with an iron hand. Simultaneously, people need to be aware about this ill practice. Question 19 has two parts. Part A. What are the significant climatic features of an oceanic fishing zone? Briefly discuss the major oceanic fishing zones of the world. A question of world geography based on total fact and information. There is not any kind of analysis. Just simply come to the point while writing such type of answers, like the major oceanic fishing grounds are located in the cool waters of the northern hemisphere. In general, where the cold and warm water currents meet. Often they are located at the meeting of cold and warm water currents. Plankton of all kinds, mainly, what is the reason? The place where the warm and cold water currents meet, there is abundant reproduction of planktons, which are food for fishes. And the major fishing zones are as under, especially the northern part of Europe and the northern part of North America. You can say the eastern coast of Atlantic and the western coast of Atlantic. Dogger Bank in northeast Atlantic region, Newfoundland area in the northwest Atlantic region, from the Bering Sea to the East China Sea in the northwest Pacific region, the eastern part of Japan facing the western part of Pacific Ocean, etc. Part B is about discuss the importance of grasslands in global food security. Again a question basically based on the facts. Grasslands covering 37% of Earth's terrestrial area play an exclusive role in global food security because major livestock population sustains in grasslands. So they are very good source of cheap meat and milk production. Different ranches are there, and thus in this way grasslands are sufficient to feed a huge chunk of livestock and making food security in the form of milk products and the meat products. Question 20 again from geography. What geography? Especially physical geography. The world has been forced to come on a common platform to meet the challenges of the climate change. Comment. Again very subjective question. After global warming became a threat to the world for the climate change, all nations came under a platform under UNO, United Nations Environment Program, United Nations Framework on Climate Convention, UNFCCC, and they are readily agreeing that all nations come shoulder to shoulder, hand in hand to cut the emissions. But still the deadlock is between the developing nations and developed nations. Developed nations say that the major chunk of emission comes from the developing nations like India and China. There are different protocols like Kyoto Protocol, but all nations are not signatory to these protocols. That is the deadlock. But still, they have come on a platform to address this problem. So, if the global warming is there, then the globalization is also there. To address the problem of global warming, all nations have been globalized. Question 20 Part B. The northern Indian plain can be developed as a major hub of the food processing industry. Discuss. First of all, why northern Indian plain? Because the food production is high. So the easy availability of raw materials, cheap labor and the market access. This is the primary reason or the synopsis of this question. Moreover, some industrial development and some new corridors like Delhi-Mumbai freight corridor can produce a great potential for such type of industries. It can be production hub, processing hub, and which will be diverted towards the exporting zones like ports at eastern and western coasts. So these are the primary reason for this question. When we come to the question number 21, again the question is based on the global warming. Island countries are facing common crisis due to global warming. How can they protect themselves against this crisis? Island nations like Maldives, Mauritius, Kiribati, Marshall Islands, Malta, etc. They are facing severe crisis of drowning. It is expected that in coming years they may be drowned or marooned in sea. What could be the instant remedies? The mitigation and the climate change adaptation. All over the world come to a platform to readdress the problem of global warming so that such nations can survive in future. Rehabilitation and mitigation efforts should be drawn on early anticipation basis so that the casualties could be stopped in future. Moreover, these nations should launch a campaign in the world against global warming so that different and reluctant nations also come to support them. These are some solutions for this problem as discussed in question number 21. Friends, when we come to question number 22, all questions are from geography, majorly based on facts, figures or information. Wherever it is needed, we will do an analysis. Question 22. Why the eastern Himalayan ranges are more prosperous in vegetation than western Himalayan ranges? Definitely a single line solution. Variation in rainfall and precipitation and the amount of sun rays. This is the only reason. The terrain of these ranges also plays an important role, followed by vegetation, followed by precipitation, sun rays and the terrain. Question 22 part B. Bring out the geographical conditions that make the Malwa region one of the major cotton producing regions in India. So what are the reasons? An extension of the Deccan Traps, availability of black soil. The main reason is iron rich black or regur soil. Water holding capacity is quite high. The warm, hot and humid climate is the second reason, and the long duration of sun rays is the third reason. They are near to the tropics, so the temperature and the insolation is high. That is the reason for the crop production. Question 23 part A. Silk industry is the largest producer of silk. Indian silk industry is the second largest producer of silk, definitely first one is China, contributing to about 18% of the world production. However, India's requirement of raw silk is much higher than its current production pie. First of all, Indian silk production is not meeting its demand, especially in textile industry. Apart from it, large quantity of raw silk is exported rather than supplied to the domestic silk industries, so that the parallel synthetic silk industry is developing and we are importing raw silk from China, Japan, etc. Question 23 part A. Question 23 part B is about iron and steel industry in India, their major production area, their distribution. Very factual and very only information based question. This is the easiest question of this paper. You all know, you all read such type of questions in extensively and at comprehensive level for pre-examination. So the distribution of coal mines is distribution of the iron mines, iron ore mines, and their their exporting zone are as follows. Mostly located in the central and north, somewhat central north eastern region of India, like Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, some part of Odisha, some part of Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, and West Bengal. On other hand, some major steel industry in the world are central part of Europe, France, and Germany. Some parts of former USSR, Russia, Ukraine, United States, etc. Question number 24. India is one of the countries having the largest deposits of coal in the world. However, development and installation of non-traditional energy resources is being more relevant to ensure the security of energy in future. Discuss the current status of non-traditional energy resources in India. Definitely, to address the problem of global warming, the depletion of high rate depletion of the conventional energy sources like coal and petroleum has forced nations to adopt an option for traditional or conventional energy sources such as renewable energy, wind in the form of wind energy and solar energy. So we can see that in recent past, India has witnessed many developments in the field of solar energy installation capacity, increasing continuously in form of solar energy and wind energy, as well as the hydroelectrical energy. Recently, India has established world's largest solar power plant in Madhya Pradesh and continuously signing memorandum of understanding with different players of this field. And when we talk about some facts and figures, it is mentioned in the model answer. Just mention those points in your answer. Direct answer based question with an open end. Question 25. India in its past did not allocate enough resources to build or maintain its road network, but currently it is making a major effort to modernize its road infrastructure. Examine the importance of road network in the economic development of India. I want to introduce a fact that national highways only constitute 2% of total land network, but they bear 40% of total load of road transportation. Before 2000, there was little or no concern about the expansion of road network in India, especially the highways or the national highways. But after that, National Highway Authority of India is engaged developing golden quadrilateral, north, south and west east corridors, etc. So the road networks are the key points to develop any infrastructure. Apart from the road networks, major road networks, India is developing also different corridors like Delhi Mumbai trade corridor or the freight corridor and the green corridors also. So here lies the development and future. This was all about journalist studies paper 1. The purpose of this paper was to just let you introduce some points which were not mentioned in the model answer and how to write an answer. I hope that you will improve yourself in the forthcoming mock papers and very best for UPSC Civil Services Main Examination 2014.